Okay. The echo on there. I'm not sure how low to put this volume, so you guys will tell me if you can hear my voice and the music's not too loud. Okay. And let's do this. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Michael Markowsky, and I'm going to be showing you how to draw today. If this is the very first time you've seen my face or tuned into one of these classes or episodes, welcome. You don't need to have watched all of them in order to follow along, and I would love if you were not only just watching but actually drawing. So if you've got a pencil and a sketchbook or just some photocopy paper, pink, green, yellow, white, black, orange, whatever it is, you can use it to make some drawings. You can even find something out of a recycle bin, the back of or the inside of a cardboard box, a cereal box. There's no excuses not to draw because everybody can do it, and I know you can too, because I've seen so many wonderful people who may have not had so much experience doing this class, and they're sending me images. Okay, I see people saying there's an echo. Okay, maybe that helps. Maybe that's, oh no, that's the music.
Oh, I see what that is. That's another one of these cameras. All these cameras around here. Thank you for the comment. So, that's a good point. If you have a comment, we're filming this in real time. So, if you notice anything like that echo, please leave it in the comments there. And if you want me to look at your drawings and give you actual feedback on your artwork, you can send them to me via Facebook, Twitter, I don't know what else, Instagram. Send me a message or tag me in the link, and then at the very end, usually in the last half hour, I'll take a look at them and give you feedback. So that's an opportunity that I welcome you to participate in. And if you like the content you see, I would very much appreciate a like and a subscribe. Tell your friends about it, repost something on Facebook. And if you're feeling super generous, there's a link to PayPal where you could send 5, 10, I've had about 4 people send $100 in. So that's super appreciated because it helps. As you've probably seen over the course of the last 15 episodes, the studio is getting developed and I'm building more and more things. So this just makes things easier for me to make more and higher quality videos. I think you've probably seen the quality go up dramatically over the past while. Okay, so let's get to it because I want to get a lot of stuff done today. Today, what we're going to be learning about is how to draw children and babies. Now, we're not going to go into the detail into faces and fingers and feet and all that. That's going to be for a future episode. Because that would just be trying to get way too much in here. So I thought what we would try to do would just be the basic proportions of a smaller person. Like I have a 10-month-old smaller person currently taking a nap upstairs. And you may or may not hear her later on throughout the episode. So how would I go about drawing my daughter? That's because I think most, and I was doing a little bit of research before the show, and there's obviously a ton of videos showing how to draw heroic male and female characters, which we did last couple of weeks. We've been learning, if you want to draw Superman, you want to draw Wonder Woman, that's fantastic. So you've seen those episodes and you can watch how we do that. And to do that, what I showed you how to do, let me see if I can kind of do a quick review here. Okay, so to do those kinds of drawings, we learned first the male figure, and we learned the 8-head tall technique, right? So that Herculean kind of Superman figure, basically we drew the head, and then we figured, okay, so if it's 8 heads tall, the waist is about halfway down, and this is how long the knees and everything will be. So that's how we would draw a kind of heroic male. And then we did the side view, and as I said, we did a Superman figure. And then I showed people how to use the line of action. And then I showed people how to draw the female figure. So this is kind of one version of the female figure, and then we put it together to draw Wonder Woman. And then if we wanted to draw maybe a less heroic female figure, and then a certainly less heroic male figure, like your somebody's got the dad bod. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take, and then we learned how to draw using the block in method. So we learned the line of action and block in, so how two totally different ways to approach drawing the figure once we learn the basic proportions. So now what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to draw little babies and big babies and children. Okay, so but before we jump right into that, what I like to do is I like to show you an image, and then I like us to try to draw that image just to kind of get us warmed up. So today I was thinking, where did this go? I'm gonna find all these windows open up here on the computer, and I had a bit of a debate as to what I wanted to draw. So let me just get so I'm going to move this into position and switch views here, and that is this one. Okay, so what we're looking at on the screen is, this is a painting by Vincent van Gogh, as I think it's properly pronounced. And I think 1888 this painting is from, towards the end of his life. I don't know if it's maybe it's probably not his most successful painting. I don't think he probably would have thought it would have been that successful. Here's another version. This is Madame Roulin. If I remember, Roulin was the owner of the house that he was staying at. He was renting a room, I think, above a coffee shop, I think. And I think it was the father who found Van Gogh who after he had shot himself in the stomach, or possibly have been shot by somebody else. But anyway, so they had a young family, and this was their daughter, I believe. And so I'm trying to decide in real time which painting I want us to do as a drawing. I think this is probably the most successful of all three. Well, this one's kind of nice, but this also could look, as little babies sometimes do, look like little dictators from these chubby little well, I love our daughter, so I don't want to say anything, but he can be trying at times, as I'm sure a lot of people watching know. Okay, so here's the first one I showed, and here's a black and white. I was originally thinking of doing this one. What I liked about this is that it's probably not a very good painting. Like, there's something, it probably is an unfinished painting, and it just looks a little bit sloppy and stuff, which is, I think, important for people to know. And that's why I was thinking about using it, because I think it's important for people to know that even the great masters, as people often refer to them, aren't doing great artwork all the time. But I think we might do this one because it's also more simplified. So I think that might be something that we could try doing. I haven't drawn this one ever before, so this is going to be a learning experience for everybody. So I'm going to get my pencils out, open up to a blank page in my sketchbook. I'm going to create another view here of the image on the screen and then of my sketchbook here. Actually, let's reverse these. Okay. So I'm going to bring this down here. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Beautiful. Got my sketchbook. You can use your regular pencils. You know, they don't have to be, you know, pretty art pencils either. You could just use one that's got the eraser chewed off. I'm just going to use some colored pencils here just because I think it might be easier for some people to follow along when they can see kind of different stages of the drawings. Okay, so got my red pencil out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that the block-in method that we tried last week, so that I can kind of demonstrate that again. So, do I want to do? Yeah, let's do that because I like how angular this picture is. Okay, so let's start out. We're going to block in this form. So if you haven't seen me do this before, it's probably going to look a little bit strange. So actually, you know, I decided, instead of trying to do the whole thing all at once, I'm just going to draw the baby first. So I've outlined the shape of where this child would go. All right? And so this is, you know, if you want to be morbid, you could think of it as like the casket that this baby would fit in. Or if we were trying to make a sculpture, this is the block of marble that we would need to create this artwork. Okay, and then I'm going to go over here, and this will be the mother. See, I made a mistake, a so-called mistake. And then her body. So I'm just very loosely, you can see now this is her arm, right? Her hand. Right? So I'm just trying to really loosely map out where things are on the page. So let's say this is this is the head up here, and this is the other face up here. All right, I'm just going to chisel in a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to come out here and chisel this. So you can see I'm using nice kind of block shapes too, just so I can eventually get everything in place. Okay, I'm going to probably switch to a different color here so that once I've got this basic drawing kind of sketched in. Okay, so I know sometimes people feel like I'm going a little bit fast, so I'm just going to kind of hold here for just a second. Right, so you can see that I've laid out the basic shapes here. I could just go in and start drawing kind of circles and rectangles. I can do that, and maybe we'll if we have time, we'll do something similar, or even draw this over again in different ways. So let's go into a little bit more depth here. I'm going to start with this baby. And let's say I'm going to kind of curve here. This is the bonnet. I'm just going to make a couple of little dots here for eyes. Dot for her mouth or nose. Right, this looks like many episodes ago I was drawing what are those things? Sloths. So we got looks like a baby or a sloth here. Right, nice wide cheeks. I'm not going to really go into the detail of the face. I just want to get a warm up where we got the basics on here. All right, so we've got this shirt. And then we got this hand. Okay. And then we've got this other hand. What is that? This, I can't quite see what these fingers are doing here. Got kind of a small screen that I'm trying to look at this, which is probably similar to how many of you are looking at this drawing. So I'm improvising a little bit, which is great. You should. You have full permission to kind of make things up as you go along here. You can see I'm kind of ignoring some of the basics, right? If I had gone to the quarry and bought this block, I might have needed to go back for another one. Okay, we got another arm here. And then this hand. And just for our sake, I'm drawing a little circle and a thumb. I think, when you're first learning to draw hands, just think about them as like mittens, right? Like as if this is a little mitten for a child, right? Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the mother here. So we've got her kind of shoulder comes up in this area here, and then her face. And this I would still consider this to be part of my underdrawing for the picture. So even though I'm drawing much darker than I would normally do if I was drawing for myself, but I'm trying to show you kind of the basic mark making that I'm doing as I go along here. So we got her hair. You can feel free to make it as big and, Marge Simpson kind of hair if you like. Okay, I got this kind of... Now, just as a quick little thing here, we're going to talk about portraiture starting next week, as we're going to move into that, but just as a quick introduction, is generally the eyes are about midway down the middle of the face. So I actually probably could have moved this down, and then the ear is halfway, or is kind of in between the eyes and the nose. But you got one eye here, and then we got this other eye, and I'm kind of stylizing this a bit. So this would be her ear. Ignore that. And then her nose. And then lips. I quite like this so far. I like the way things are kind of turning out. Okay. So you can see, like, my proportions aren't absolutely correct, right? Like where her chest is and this baby's hand. There's, in the original, there's a little bit more space, but again, this would be part of my warm-up drawing. I showed you in the last episode how I would fix all this. I'm not gonna spend time doing that today because I want to move on and teach you something new. But if you wanted to do that, you've seen how I've shown you the technique So we got her arm. And again, I'm using those original lines to make any changes, right? So, you know, there is, you know, it helps stake out the territory, and then I can go back in and make changes. I'm going to do a whole episode, maybe actually a couple episodes on hands. So, just for our sake here, I'm just drawing a circle. Like I said, drawing it like a mitten. So we're not going to spend too much time learning at this time how to draw a hand. I'm just going to make it as simple as possible. And then her skirt is something. Making this baby kind of chubby baby. Uh-oh. We're going, this is now starting to look like a little old man, which little babies often do. That's alright. I'll give her a couple little eyelashes. A little mouth there. Okay. Okay. So, oh, and then there's, I don't want to forget her other leg would be kind of coming through on this side. So, I know that I'm not sure, but I imagine I'm making this look maybe easier for some people than it might feel. So it's not important that you nail this drawing and it looks absolutely fantastic. For me, just the process of attempting this is an achievement in and of itself. All right. Okay. So if you wanted, you could color this in, and I could start doing some shading, and I could do all that, but I think I'm going to, I'm just going to leave it there. So maybe I'll just wait a second here and quickly have a sip of tea, which is always important whenever you're drawing, is to have tea handy. Okay, so I think if you want to continue working on this warm-up drawing, then you're welcome to pause, and because you can pause right now and the video will keep on recording, and then you can just unpause later on when you're ready. But I am going to move on here. So let's turn the page. Where's my previous? Where'd that go? While I figure this out, I'll keep that there. All right. Okay, I gotta create a new one then. Okay, so let's go to a new page in our sketchbook, and we're going to talk about, and I'm going to turn my sketchbook on its side. And do I have enough room here to fit it all? Yeah, okay, good. Just enough. I want to be able to fit the, we're going to draw on, you can see the a horizontal landscape format for our book. Okay, I just realized a little preview screen that I haven't turned on yet. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start out by drawing the grid. Now, we use the pink. I like a little bit of consistency here, so I'm going to go back to the same color. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to draw those guidelines that we have done in the past. So we're going to go all the way across the page. So this is going to be the top. It's kind of like a little bit of a frame. And then another one on the bottom. And look at that. My lines aren't straight. You don't need a ruler to do this. If you want to use a ruler, then by all means, there's nothing stopping you. What I'm going to do is divide this in half, or I guess you can't quite see my fingers there. So I'm going to divide this in half, right? So I'm just going to eyeball it and throw this line right down the middle. And then I'm going to divide this in half. And then I'm going to divide this in half. And then let's divide each quarter in half again. Okay, so just as we're going to do a chart here where I think we could probably fit, I think we could fit 3 drawings in here. Maybe we're going to do a few of these. So on this first one here, what we're going to do is we're going to draw, you know what, I'm just going to switch this and then adjust. Just so I have a lot more room here. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so now we got a little more room on the sketchbook here for things. Okay, so we're gonna redraw that kind of heroic male. Then we're gonna draw a regular guy, and then we're going to go to maybe a teenage boy, and then I think we're gonna. Well, we'll see if we can fit a little child on here. We can do that. Well, so okay, so let's start out. Let's go. I put these little X's on the top and the bottom, and then I'm just gonna number here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, and then I'm gonna circle 4 because 4 is really important, at least to start out. Okay. So if we were gonna draw that. Maybe just for this will be a quick review. You don't have to draw this one necessarily. So this one, if I was going to draw the kind of heroic male figure, I'd start out with a head, and then I did a kind of imaginary heads on either side. And this tells me that the shoulders are this wide, and then we drew this pillow. Because I like to think of this as a pillow, and this is going to be where the belly button is. And then we've got the neck, and these shoulders coming up here. Okay. These are the kind of the shoulder sockets. Around here we're going to draw the shoulders. I'm going to draw lines going all the way down to the middle point, where the hands are going to be. Alright, so here's our hands. So that comes right down just past the hips here for the wrists. And then the elbows are just a little bit higher above here, and then so we can draw these little sausage shapes. Okay. And then we've got our legs coming down. I like to put little triangles here. And the knees, and then we have, so I know if I'm going a little bit fast, but this is a bit of a review just for, if you've watched in the past, so these are going to be where the pectoral muscles are going to be, and you got your 6-pack here. Okay, so does that look familiar to people? Okay. So, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you. So this is the 8 head tall figure, right? So this is. I'm just going to put a big number 8. There's like that's a superhero for you there, ready to go. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a 7 head tall figure, because I created this image, which is, I don't know, maybe a little bit loony for today's thumbnail. And it's probably worth me showing this here. Oh, come on. Probably like, why on earth did he create such a weird image? What does this have to do with anything? Well, okay, I'm going to drag this over. So what I wanted to actually demonstrate how this whole 8 head tall, 7 head tall thing works, and why we even use it. Is this just some hypothetical thing that exists in theory, or does it have actual practical use? So here's this is an image I found on a website of like wedding photographers, and so here's a family running around on the beach, beautiful family, and because these aren't idealized, these aren't superhero figures, they're regular folks just like you and me. I've kind of outlined how tall each one of them is in terms of heads, right? So the father is 7 heads tall, the mother is 6 heads tall, the daughter is 5 1/4, 5 1/2 heads tall, the son is 5 heads tall, 4 heads tall, or like this, where I cut and pasted the heads a whole bunch of times. But I think it really does help bring this whole idea home, where when you can actually see them here on the board, right? So so let's now try and draw this this actual what we see here, or well, not exactly what you see here, but we're going to I'm going to draw like a regular guy here. So if this is 8 heads tall, like 1, 2, 3, or maybe I'll use a different color here. So if I did 1 head, 2 heads, 3 heads, 4 heads, 5 heads, 6 heads, 7 heads, 8 heads, right? 8 head tall. So this is where, so now we're going to do a 7 head tall figure, right? So which is a little bit more normal. And the reason, again, why I showed you how to do the 8 head tall one is you're going to see that the 7 head tall one is a little bit it's a little bit more difficult in the sense that things aren't going to line up as nice and smoothly to the lines, right? So let's say I'm going to draw, let's just try to figure out how much I can fit on the page here. I'm going to draw this head here. So this is going to be, I'm just going to draw right on here. This is a 7 head tall figure, right? And I don't know about you, but already when I draw that, it just starts to feel a little bit more normal, right? And if we even look at the image to the left, right, the photograph of the family, we look at that father, right, you can see that there's kind of right in the middle, like if we've got these heads, right, the kind of the center as we come down, like I'm sorry, I got this all mixed up here. So if these are heads, right, this now halfway between the top and the bottom is the waist. So the waist is always going to be this kind of this distance in half here. Okay, but we'll come back to that shortly here. So I'm going to divide this in half. This is the shoulders. Now previously we did these heads, and for the female we kind of divided them in half. So we're going to do that for the male, regular Joe male, right? So the width of the shoulders is half the shoulder. You know, we take like, it's basically 2 heads wide. Does that make sense? So here's where our shoulders are. Here's where the neck would be. And then the shoulders aren't going to be nearly as sloped, right? Or if we really want to make this like a big beefy guy, this neck gets wider and these shoulders start coming up higher, as we did a Superman drawing earlier. So halfway down here, between 4 and 5, this is where the waist is going to be, right? So I can just draw some legs. So this is my waist. That means my knees are about halfway down. Right, so I'm just going to draw these legs in here. So these are the calves. All right, now we'll just go a little bit darker so you can see, because if you're, this might be where you're beginning your drawing if you didn't want to do this one. All right, so here's, now we can draw the hands, and they come down. They're going to begin right by the waist here, the hips. All right, and again, we've got these fingers. Okay, so here's where our shoulders are going to be. And then the elbows are roughly halfway down the arm. Not entirely, but for our kind of introductory purpose, that kind of works, right? Right, so if we were wearing this, the belly button is going to be a little bit up here, and this would be your swim trunks kind of would be around here. So maybe I'm just going to outline, I'm going to go over this with a pencil or another color just so you can kind of see. Okay. These kind of little triangular feet. Okay. So does that make sense for this? This would be your you know, this is your LeBron James. He may even be a little bit taller. And then this is me. You've even kind of taken a little bit of weight off the sides there, right? So so we're kind of stepping down. We're getting smaller and smaller. So now let's say let's draw a teenager right here. So, and hopefully I'm not going too fast for people, but let's say I'm going to do like a 6 head tall figure. Okay, so 6, 7 head tall figure. All right. So now if we think about if we have these heads, 6 heads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, and this is the ground. Now we got to find where the waist is going to be, right? So previously the waist, you know, is now going to be halfway in between here, right? So that between 3 and the bottom line here, right? Which puts it somewhere between about like what's it, 5.5, right? So let's draw this neck, and we can draw for our, obviously as we shrink down the it's not exactly halfway between 3 and 4, but again, we're simplifying things. This is introductory class. Now, again, as the body gets smaller and smaller, the shoulders get smaller as well. So this, for our purpose, let's say we'll just keep it half a head wide. All right, so here's the torso. All right, here's your shoulders and the neck. Hip joints here, and let's just draw some lines down to the bottom. And then halfway between here and here's your knees. The arms are going to come halfway down like this. Fingers aren't going to be probably as long as there, but so we've got that, right? The elbows are about halfway. And so let's just put these sausage shapes back on. And then same thing. So, and then I'm going to outline this whole thing as well. So the kind of the main point that you're going to start seeing out of all of this is that the relationship of the head gets bigger to the body as we get younger and younger, right? And if you, well, as you'll see, you know, if you have, and just like the image to the left there, right? I mean, how to say this? Like, so that the child that the father is holding is 4 heads tall, right? So the head is just larger in relationship to all of the body. And as we get to, we're going to do a really young baby, because we're going to do a whole another page of this type of drawing. And you'll see that by the time we get here, we will have a 2-head tall figure. Okay, so maybe just before, I'm just going to wait a second for people to kind of, because I might be going a little fast, so I'm just going to go over this drawing and the first one here just for fun, I guess. And okay. So, hopefully we're ready to move on to another page here. Maybe I'm just going to take a quick look at the comments just to make sure something catastrophic hasn't happened. Peter says he sent a drawing over Twitter and tagged me. Hanta says, it is bad I draw in anime style. I'm not sure if you mean my drawing or your drawing here. Okay. So, I'm going to go to the next drawing. I'm just going to sharpen my pencil real quick. Since you did mention like the anime style, anime, well, I mean, I hesitate to talk about anime as like one style, because there are dozens and dozens of styles of anime. But I guess maybe stereotypically they tend to maybe have slightly larger heads. Okay, so let's... Certainly much larger facial features, like eyes, and much smaller noses and mouths, right? So that would be the kind of the most noticeable defining feature in anime. Okay, so now we've got the top and bottom. Let's draw another line halfway across. And we're going to do another line dividing each in half. All right. And then I'm going to do another line across. Another line. Another line. Another line. Okay, and then I'm going to X the top and bottom out. And we're just going to do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just going to make this a little bit darker. Okay. So on, just so I remember on our previous drawing, so we did 8, 7, 6. Do I want to do 5, 4, 3, 2? How many can I fit on here? I got 5, 4, 3, 2. I think we'll be able to fit, we'll do 4 more drawings here, because it gets, as you can see, we're getting kind of, there's a repetition, which is important. So we're going to do the 6 head tall figures. The head went to the 2. We're going to go to the 3. So let's draw a head here. Okay. So this is going to be our 5 head tall figure. Okay. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to draw the shoulders, and again, technically everything is kind of getting smaller, so the neck is getting smaller, but you know, just for our purpose, I'm gonna say we're gonna be kind of halfway between 4 and 5. Okay, so that's where our shoulders are gonna be. Now if you think of in between 4 and the bottom here, where the feet are gonna go, this is the ground, is where the waist is going to be, right? So between here and here, halfway is this line right here, right? So then we can draw, this is this torso, and then legs. I'm just going to put these here, all right, with the knees here. That means the arms come down just below half. Right, and then here's our shoulders. Elbows would be halfway. All right, you can use a little circles for this. All right, torso. Here's the calf, or sorry, the thighs, and then the calves. All right. Okay. This actually, the neck would be even thinner. So the thinner like the whole body is kind of shrinking. The head in relationship is staying larger, but the neck, let's go around here and. Sharpen this pencil here. A little sloppy there, but okay. So, this needs a sharp one as well. Okay, so let's keep on going here. We're gonna do 4. Just see if I've got enough room here. Yeah. So we're gonna do 4, 3, and then 2 here. Just so you can see where we're heading here, the road ahead. Okay, so we're gonna do and so in terms of ages, I don't, it's hard to say. Like this, is your, 5'5", to 6'1", typical, male, guy, like myself kind of thing, right? This would be probably, a teenager might sometimes be taller than that, right? But so this would be, maybe somebody who is, what would you say? That would be like 14 years old or something, right? So then this is what, 10 years old maybe, and then this is going to be like 6, and then like 2, and then like 1-year-old kind of thing around here. Or this actually would be, well, maybe a little bit younger, so -1 somewhere. Anyway, roughly. Okay, so let's continue. I'm going to draw this neck in here, and as you can see, the neck has progressively gone from, from the adult, where the neck is kind of coming pretty much straight down out of the head. If we wanted to make this a muscle man, right, the neck comes out here. And then as we get younger and younger, that neck gets smaller and smaller, right? Okay, so now I am going to kind of, before we were doing it halfway down here, so I'm just going to come up a little bit higher than halfway. If halfway was here, I'm coming up a little bit higher. Halfway between 5 and the bottom is here. So this is going to be the length of the torso. And then here's the legs. The knees halfway. The arms halfway. And you can see this is like basic stick figure. If you didn't even want to draw all of the muscles or anything on there, then you could just kind of ignore all that, right? And you could draw like this basic stick figure style as well. So now I'm just doing what we've normally done, and as you go, you're probably starting to kind of get you might even be able to race ahead, and it'd be interesting to see if you do race ahead, if you're one of the faster people in the class, how closely you match up with my drawing at the end here. Okay, and so we're going to do this, finish these drawings off in probably about another 5 minutes, and then we're going to do our final drawing for the day, a version of the Incredibles, a Disney Pixar film. Okay, so let's go down here to number 3. So again, this neck is getting smaller and smaller. Right, so if this again is halfway, obviously that would be a ridiculously long neck. So we're not going to go quite that far. This is going to be the center here, so. And then here's these legs. Hands coming just down past the center. Okay, and at this point, the head is sort of and the torso are kind of about the same width apart, right? Our elbows are halfway. All right. Okay. Okay, so now we've come down to the final one, the baby here, the size of the baby. So now, if our neck is going to be kind of small, it's just barely coming down out of here, right, halfway between here and here, that's right there. So we have this tiny little torso, tiny little legs, tiny little hands, and this is definitely a abstraction from reality. You know, technically in real life, the baby's head is not the same size as the rest of its body at any time. But just for our very beginning kind of drawing class that I'm teaching right now, this helps us kind of understand how the head is definitely larger in relationship to the rest of the body. So sometimes we have to exaggerate a little bit here to make the point. And I'm also kind of, as I'm doing this, you know, the little babies are quite pudgy little things, adorably so. So we can kind of make this a little bit bigger. Right, so here would be the final one that we see as we go here. The head appears to sort of be getting smaller and smaller as the body gets bigger, right? Which you could see how in the next drawing we're about to do here with like the Incredibles, how they really kind of play on that. So maybe I'll just leave that just for a second in case there's people who are still working away. Great to see all of you guys drawing along here. Again, if this is helpful to you, then I would really appreciate just before you leave the session for today, we're an hour in, we're going to draw for another 20 minutes or so, and there'll be time for some questions. Or comments. If you have any photos, we'll look at. Peter's got one he sent me on Twitter, so I'll find that shortly. So are we ready to move on? I think this should be fairly self-explanatory, fairly straightforward. Again, this is a basic drawing class, so I'm oversimplifying things a little bit. But, you know, if you wanted to draw like a cartoon character like we're about to draw, you'll see how this all plays out quite clearly. So, which, I haven't even decided exactly which, which one here. Where's my... Well, let me leave this here while I figure out which image I want to draw. Maybe you guys will pull all this up here. And then... That's strange. Let's make another one here. Okay. So I'm just going to pull this down and we'll just take a quick look at images in just a bunch of random ones here. So this is like a real human being dressed up as one of the characters. So I thought it's helpful just to see how, because here, for instance, is the cartoon version of that same character. So you can see in real life, you know, in terms of heads, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be your kind of like 5 head tall figure, right? And in my drawing I said, but the 10-year-old kid or so, right around there, right? So versus here, right, the Disney artists have certainly abstracted this. So this, I think the child's supposed to be around the same age. It's been a while since I've seen The Incredibles, but we basically have like a 3 head tall figure here. 1, 2, 3, right? Which puts this in real life closer to like a 2-year-old or so, right? Okay, so there's that character. This is the actual baby from The Incredibles. I thought this was kind of interesting. This is, one of those, it's not blowing up very well, but, what kind of bobblehead figure, I can't remember the name of these characters you see in toy stores all the time, but they'll make a Batman version with a gigantic head and the body the same size. So I think it is helpful just to see how artists play with proportions in their artwork and how you can do that as well, right? That you don't have to follow the guidelines that the template of the 8 head tall figure to make a heroic figure, right? You can really play with proportions, and I think that's one of the more interesting things where you really start to develop your own style as an artist, is when you play around with this stuff. Right, here's a blow up inflatable, probably Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade or something. Here's the whole family, or I guess they're missing the little baby. I think I have one with the whole, and that's a little bit pixelated. I think, oh, here's another one. That one works better. Okay. So you can see, like, look at the size of the father just to start out with, like this hulking torso, these big arms, like huge sloping shoulders, and then these tiny little legs, and then the feet are super small, right? So these artists have deliberately decided to make the top part of the body larger than the legs, so the legs are much smaller. As opposed to, for instance, the female character here, look, the size of her head is larger than his head. He's got this gigantic chin, but the top of his head, it's almost like egg shapes, right? This one is like I don't know which one would be inverted. I guess this would be with the bottom and then small point versus the opposite here, right? And then the inverse of here, they've made the top of her body quite short, and then the bottom, her legs are much longer. The extreme of this, which I think is probably, I'm always hesitant with these kind of very absurd body distortions, especially for female characters. But you could see how absurdly slim and this young woman's character is with this, her waist is absurd, and then these absurdly long legs, right? Again, it's a cartoon, I understand, but I don't think they would. I really have like a philosophical disagreement with the way that this is drawn. If this would have been one of my students at Emily Carr, we would have had a conversation about it for sure. And then you can see that this is this little boy here. Again, we've just talked about how he's about, in here he looks almost like 2.5 heads tall, but I think just because he's leaning forward, and then the baby here being basically 2 heads tall. So all in all, we're just talking about how these heads change. If we begin from there, we can see how the proportions change. I don't think we could do the full family today. If you wanted to, you can find this image on Google Image fairly quickly. It's not too hard to do that. But so I think just in terms of where we are, I wonder how many we could get done. Which one do I want to do? Do we want this baby or this baby? I want the happy baby or the Let me think one more time here. Yes, baby. I think maybe I'm gonna start here with this one, and then if we have time, I'll see. Again, my cameras and their batteries may die. I can also. I'm in no hurry to run out the door or anything, so I might just keep on recording. And again, it doesn't bother me if you have to do something, you got to run, and you want to pause and come back later. I'm just going to try to show as much as possible for people who want to learn. So, okay. So if, gosh, that's a pain. How would I do this? Let's say this here. And then, okay. So, I'm going to pull this up here, and we're going to draw this character on the left. Okay, so to begin with, if I know that I'm going to draw a child, I don't have to draw that whole grid out, because I can kind of immediately go to decide how big is the head going to be. So in this instance, I'm going to begin with a big circle. And in fact, since we know this is going to be 2 heads high, let's make this even bigger. Right? It's okay if I made initially a different size, right? I'm using this pink here to suggest like this would be the underdrawing, a very, very lightly done drawing with a regular pencil if you're drawing in black and white. Okay, so if this is 1 head high, right, then that means the feet are going to be somewhere down there. In this drawing, the baby doesn't really have a neck at all, right? The neck is kind of almost been obliterated in here in terms of this style, which is fine. You know, this character also looks like it's we got this kind of child who's kind of hunching his shoulders up a little bit, right? Okay, so we've got that head. Let's let's kind of try to block in the rest of the body here. So those are those arms. If this is the feet, we know that technically the waist is going to be somewhere in between here, right? Just to kind of help keep us in the zone, right? Now again, we're drawing this character, which is a little bit distorted. Maybe next class, do we want to draw a more realistic one? I have to think about that. I had a different plan for next class of drawing like a senior citizens and stuff, so I had older characters. So, but I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to draw a more realistic baby and child, or if we want to go the opposite direction and draw seniors. And maybe I could do both and just keep on extending the course infinitely. Okay, so let's think if this is, again, this is a distortion, but I'm going to draw, this would be the kind of the torso in here somewhere, right? And then we've got these arms coming off here, right? I'm just gonna got these little hands, right? The arms are out, so that's why the wrists look higher. But if the hands were coming down to the side, they would kind of come right along here on the hips, right? And then we've got these legs and feet here. So I'm just kind of trying to sketch this whole thing out. If we're drawing the line of action as we talked about before, this would be, for me, this kind of spring here. I could also see somebody trying to do the opposite to kind of show the, so this, like, that line of action can be interpreted in different ways. Let's say we've got, this is our arms. If we're happy with where the layout of the body is at this point, then we're ready to move forward. In terms of the face, okay, well, what I'm going to do is, let's say, I'm going to draw on this face these kind of guidelines. So I'm sort of, you imagine this is a line going right down the middle of the face, right? And then this is one going right down the middle of the face the other direction. This would be where the eyes are going to go, right? And this is where the nose and the mouth are going to go. So this helps me right now. If I look at my drawing, I think I might need to move this line down just a little bit, because otherwise this looked like the head was kind of up higher, and I want the head to come down a bit. Kind of, you know, as a when you're angry, you know, like a bull's gonna charge. I want those eyebrows to be kind of lower down, right, as opposed to higher up, right? So, okay, so we got here. This is where the eyes are going to go along this line. So I'm going to, let's say we're going to put a dot here and then a dot here. We're going to go into portraiture in the future, but just for our purpose right now. And then we've got this little button nose and then this kind of mouth here. Okay, I'm going to draw this big frowning, these big eyes. Okay. So these little dots, this is supposed to be for like the pupil of the eye, right? So the little black part in the center of our eyes. Okay. So if we've got that, then we're going to outline it with this the face mask. Okay, maybe actually I should, well, I'm going to continue using this color just for a couple more quick lines. And, okay, so even right here, I look at my drawing, and then I look at the drawing, the original image. Now, I can do a quick diagnostic, and I can see, like, okay, if this here, if I draw this line across, yes, these things, there's a gap here, but I think in my drawing, it's higher than it needs to be. Right, so this, one of these, this might have to go up a little bit. Or I can leave it, right? Or this can kind of come down a little bit, meaning that whole eye can move down as well. And this is okay, because this is the black part of this mask, right? Okay. And then I got my ear, which again, to find that ear, it's going to be, it should be around the top of this eye line, or a little bit lower. I've got a big ear. Children tend to have ears that stick out a little bit. And then we've got this kind of spiky hair. Okay. So now I'm just gonna, I've outlined where everything is. If I want to change anything, this is the time to do it. You know, and I look at my drawing, possibly the back of the legs could come back out a little bit more so that the character looks like it's kind of moving forward more. If I want to do that, I can. I'm just gonna, for our sake, because I'm running low on time here, I'm just gonna start going over this drawing. And I'm gonna do these eyes first. And there's a little highlight in here. And then the top of this could come down. Okay. Am I happy with that? I'm pretty happy. Don't forget this frown line here. Can't quite see how this nose was done here on the screen, so I'm just going to keep it kind of circular. And then this grumpy mouth. And then, so this is a perfect circle, but this, you can see this chubby cheeks kind of comes out a little bit, so it becomes a little bit of an asymmetrical kind of shape. Okay. And then if we want, we could just kind of quickly color this in, because I think your drawing is going to change once we put some darkness on this mask, because you may fiddle with it for a while thinking there's something wrong with it, and then the mask can help. Okay. Let's just imagine that this is... I don't know if I'll have time to color this whole thing in. Okay, and then let's see, get this arm. And crossing these shapes over. And I'm simplifying things just for the sake of convenience, and also because I know that this is an introductory class here, so I'm not going into all of the texture of the clothes, or trying to get, you know, all the muscles and stuff. I think just for our purpose. Again, if this is our fist, I think I'm just going to kind of draw a very simplified version of these hands. Same thing here. We've got this thumb. If you think of it like a glove, or a mitten, I mean, it can make it a little bit easier. If you wanted to shade this whole thing, I think you could do that with relative ease. It looks like I could have maybe had a little more space here for this cheek and kind of given a little bit of rouge. All right. But so now we have, like, the head is, you know, obviously is so much larger than the body that we think of it as like a child, or as opposed to like a full-grown man or something, right? It wouldn't be too hard to turn this into like a caricature, you know, of a president or a celebrity or something, by adding things like, I don't know, more hair, or receding hairline, a beard, a mustache, you know, clothing that would be more appropriate to an adult than a child. Okay, maybe I'll 525. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try doing another drawing very quickly. And if my batteries run out, I'm just going to replace them. So what I'm going to do is, let me see, I thought I had another one. Let's do this kid. And just so we can draw maybe a little bit more realistic version of a boy. Okay. So if I wanted to draw this kid on here, then I'm going to start out, let's figure out how big this head is going to be. All right, so let's say I start out with something like that, right? And then that would tell me 1, 2, 3. How many heads did I say? This is a 5 head tall figure. Right? I think that makes sense, right? We got right here is about halfway. This is the ground. Well, we'll either way we're going to convert this figure into a 5 head tall figure. It might be a little bit bigger or smaller either way. Okay, so let's put the I don't know if anybody's following along, so I might go a little bit faster. So if this is where the shoulders would be, and I'm going to kind of build the basic structure first. And then I'm going to kind of go in and fix any kind of details. So we could say this is one leg and then another leg. Okay. Technically the arms would come down here and we'd have these, but this body is not positioned that way, so instead we've got this arm coming here and here, which is going to raise that hand up a little bit. All right, and then this one is out here and here. All right, so the elbows are roughly in the same place, and then the hand up here. Am I drawing too lightly? Hopefully people can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so if I've got the basic kind of proportions in place, then I'm going to start drawing onto this figure. So here's the shoulders. Now the body is kind of pitched back a little bit, so I'm going to move this torso over. All right, so we've got, this is going to be right underneath the legs. Here's kind of the center of trying to simplify this as much as possible for so if people want to follow along. Okay, and if we were putting this here, we had okay, so I think this is, we've got the, I'm just going to continue kind of working in here with our, let's see, this black, red, logo up here, neckline, the knees are right here, so these boots are going to come pretty close to those knees. Okay, so I'm going to take another pencil here, and let's start going around. I need to sharpen that. How does that, how does this thumb? I'm just going to simplify these feet here just for sake. But if we wanted to draw boots on there, that I'm going to do a whole class on drawing feet, which is certainly one of the more difficult things traditionally to draw. Oops. Which is why a lot of people tend to put their characters with really big boots, or the feet are always in tall grass or whatever. You see comic book artists do this all the time just to avoid having to deal with that problem. We got these eyes, this mask. Let me see. I don't know if I'm going to finish this drawing. Just want to be able to people to see kind of how some of these principles are used. Because once you've got your character into the kind of this zone where you're now being able to kind of move details around, it might seem easy for me to say, but a lot of the hardest work is done. This is the most difficult thing to do in a drawing, is to get your image to this stage. Once it's there, I can spend all sorts of time. Let's say this hand, I could erase it and move it a little bit here. I could work on, the subtlety of this bicep here and the elbow, and how this contours around. Like, I could. All of that is the fine tuning of details. That's the difference between, like, I don't know why the leather seats versus the faux leather seats in the car, right? Like, those are all the little tiny finicky details, which I know are important, but the structural element, making sure we've got basic proportions correct, is really where you want to spend most of your time, especially when you're just learning, right? If your sketchbook has a whole bunch of drawings like this in it, and you're taking my class at this stage, this level, that would be amazing. I'd be really, really excited to see this kind of artwork in there. Okay, I'm going to leave it up on the screen for just a second while I do a quick search to find... look at all these great comments. Lovely Drawing says hi. Heidi says hi. Hanta Kun. Palash. Peter, Megan, Lori. Sandy. Palash says, are you going to do any more drawings? Drawings look good already. Okay. So I think I'm going to go here to my Twitter, and I'm going to keep this up here if anybody's following that, while I find this image that Peter sent. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Okay. How am I going to pull this? Okay. So let's bring me back into position here. bring up Peter's drawings. So this was the original that you were working from, I believe, right? And then this is your version of it. Cool. Okay. So if I go back to your message, what did you say? I used the envelope method for the drawing. I had some difficulty with the sword and shield, and I ended up doing the sword by grid. I think I have trouble seeing value and drawing it beyond 2D projection of the character on the page. Okay. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. So, okay, so this sword, so she's holding this sword out, I guess with this, right? And it's pointing direct. I don't have a sword, oddly enough, here. I have everything else here in the basement. So if I had a ruler to kind of show. So this would be like her holding her shield and kind of pointing right up. In fact, it's pointing in a way where you can't even really see her hand at all because she's got that thing that protects her hand from the, you know. So this is you certainly chose a tricky drawing to do, because what we're talking about here, when somebody's holding something that appears to be coming towards us, is a technique called foreshortening, which you can even see just as I hold this forward here. Like, look at the size of one hand, I'll just put this down, versus this hand. All right? This hand looks like twice the size of this hand, right? So if you're trying to draw something moving forward, you want it to look bigger. I would say, in terms of this original image, I would actually expect that sword to be bigger. I'd expect it to be wider as it kind of moves towards you, because that makes it look like when her sword comes down, it's going to be very small. Like, so I think you'd want it to be wider. The artist kind of cheated by not showing you any of the forearm or the hand. So they've artists use as many little tricks to get away with stuff as possible. So not surprising. Again, she's got this absurd torso. She's missing a bunch of ribs, so that makes it tricky to draw. I think you actually did a really good job of drawing this and doing this foreshortening. It's definitely it's not, you chose something more difficult to draw, for sure. I think you nailed the proportions. I think everything worked out quite well. Let me see. What else could I say? I think, we haven't talked about portraiture, so we haven't talked about like how to draw faces, and that would be kind of again, depending on what I decide to do next, we'll get to. So there's a little bit of work we could do here with like the nose, and noses are really difficult to draw, so it's not surprising that there was... but I do like how you tried to solve that problem there. I think I like the way that this artist did this kind of big, messy, full head of hair, right? There's a lot of volume in that hair. I think I like the way that your attempt here to draw this and to actually define a lot of the hair is something I talk about. Like, so instead of just drawing the mass, the form of it, is to try to kind of describe, the movement of the hair as a form. So I like what you did here. You can see what this artist did, though, is that they may have done the underdrawing like that, but then they've gone over and kind of blocked out certain areas with just solid black, right? So, and this would be a typical step. Like, this would be the penciler of the comic would maybe draw something like this, and then the inker, a separate person usually in the comic industry, would come back over and then put big solid areas of color. So that'll just give it a more full feeling. Whereas right now, this has a little bit, it looks thinner and a little bit messier. Even though her hair is kind of a little bit wild in here. I feel like her hair's wild versus this looking a little bit messier. I like that you filled it in with these kind of birds in the background and you added a little bit of shading. That certainly helps. I like that this is something that we've talked about before. A lot of people just, you know, they leave most of the drawing blank, right? Untouched. That's pure white or cream colored or whatever color you're using. So I like that you've pretty much gone over the whole picture with your pencil, which is nice to see you giving kind of equal attention to the whole image. I think there's one thing I do notice is that, so for instance, you've kind of put a little bit of shading attention onto her legs, but you can see these kind of little short strokes, these little small pencil strokes, that does have the effect of possibly creating the confusion in the viewer's eye between shading and then hair, right? So this could make her legs look like they're really hairy legs, right? Or she's got fur on her legs or something. So I would try to like have longer strokes on here, or even trying to avoid using the tip of the pencil entirely and instead using the side of the pencil to try to avoid those sharp points of lines, if that makes sense. In fact, if anything, using this short mark making stroke would also work well to go back over top of some of these the lines in the hair in the same way that the original artist did, if that again makes sense. These reflections on her armor are tricky to do, and this is the colorist, usually again another person, a third person who's gone over this image, you know, can kind of cheat a little bit by literally blowing out, like, you know, this is so bright that it's obscuring some of the black lines underneath. Right? This is something you couldn't do in comic books in the 60s, so this is kind of an innovation of the printing process today. But trying to do some, see how we did here. So you haven't, which is not surprising. Trying to do this shiny metal is a whole other thing. And I should make a list of all the classes I want to teach, because which I actually have, so I'll add it to the list, because that's something people have talked about, is how to draw metallic surfaces and glass surfaces, etc. So, but I mean, as a sketch, I think you've done a fantastic job. Like, good work. And I also really appreciate that you've been sending pictures in, Peter. Right? That you're brave enough to send them here so that I can give you feedback, and then I know other people are watching it and they're learning from looking at the images that you and other people have sent in the past. Okay, so we're looking at an hour, almost 2 hours of the course so far. I do want to, let me see, just kind of talk about suggestions for the next class. And so, just for next class, what I'd like for you, or over the course of until Thursday, is just start looking for images of younger people. Maybe you have children at home. Take some photographs of them, or look online and find some images that you could use to draw from. And then try doing the basic, very basic drawings of just the proportions, right? Like, try doing like the final drawing that I did here Well, you could try drawing Wonder Woman, but see if you could try drawing like the other kids in the Incredibles. A good place to look, just like this, is online let me see. I'll just bring this here. Oops, no, I don't want that. Can I bring? No. Oops. There we go. So a good place to look for images would be, and maybe I should just bring that up on here. Let's make another one of these. I'll show you instead of just me describing how to do things. I'm going to show you how to do things. Okay. So let's say instead of Wonder Woman, I'll open up a new Google Images page because I'll just show you kind of how I do. So let's say, who would be, what's another character or person? I'm drawing a total blank of superhero. What would be somebody kind of I'd want to promote as a positive role model? Oh, who's a positive character you could dress up for as Halloween? Like, I don't know, Albert Einstein costume. All right, and let's see, kids. All right, so I look that up. I go to images, and then the next thing I often will go to here, go to size or tools, size, and then large, because this will ensure that if I do want to use this image, I've got like a nice big, higher resolution image. All right, so you can see it's still thinking, and there it is, a nice and clear image that I could use, and then I could just drag it onto my desktop or save it to my camera roll if you've got an iPad or something. All right, so using an image of a little kid dressed up as Albert Einstein, I think would be, you know, or any other person that you think could be worthy of your time. It doesn't have to be somebody dressed up either, but you know, you could just Google kid lawyer, kid artist, or whatever, and then see if you can draw the basic proportions as we've done throughout today's class. Okay, I don't think there's much more. Well, I mean, there's lots more that I could say, but in terms of this class, and without getting into like the musculature and skeleton and all that kind of stuff, and really diving deep into the minutia of how to draw these figures, I think that's probably enough for most people. Okay, everybody, so I want to thank you for taking the time to watch today's episode, for all of the great comments. I see more of them coming up here already. So I really appreciate the interaction. It's so exciting to see you from all over the world joining me here live, or if you're watching this, you know, a couple days from now or a year from now, I'd still love to see your images. I'd still love to be, you know, again, if this takes place in which people have done. I'm getting emails from people. I'm on class number 3, and here's my drawing. And I'll comment or you know, send you a message in return, because this is fun for me. I really enjoy doing this. So the more interactivity, the more it makes it seem like I'm using my time effectively. Okay, everybody, so have yourselves a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we will see you on Thursday. And yeah, I guess I don't have much more to say after that. See you guys.